I think the set changes the meta a fair bit, with Lianorn and Prison likely to be very popular and very powerful deck. I might have been wrong about that one. While stuff like Jiva and Chris Rain are going to kind of come in at some points at lower tables, or even at higher tables, a good pilot, will get there with those decks. I think these are kind of interesting. Into those 4 decks, this is going to be a great format for you in terms of fun. Man, it was also a good format for you if you liked winning, if you were playing Jiva and Chris Rain and Zorga and Welstra. I was so wrong about this metagame. Let's talk. Hello, everybody. My name is SQUAGGY, and it's been a while, right? Since I last uploaded, Set 11 has been out for a while now, and so has DZ-LBT02. It just came out pretty recently in the JP format. And if you recall what I said in that review, a lot of it was wrong. I was wrong. I'm wrong very often. Don't listen to YouTubers about anything in your life. Never. Not once. But we can learn from people being wrong. You know, maybe we all didn't try Lianorn properly at some point, but we can still look and learn from our mistakes and how we can improve on our evaluations in the future so that, you buy the right decks or so that you prepare correctly for metagames in the future. So, let's look at this result here. This is WGP Tokyo Season 2, which is the first tournament. I talked about a bit on the channel already, but the basic gist of it is basically, it looked like Prison was the dominant deck, as you can see here. There were 9 Prisons who made top cut, and in contrast to that, 1 Lianorn who made it all the way. And we also saw that a lot of the older decks were tangoing still fine. Buff Sagra had both kind of crossover dress builds and non-crossover dress builds do well. Vagilla and Toys stood strong. Minerva stood strong. Youthberg got a lot better. You will see Youthberg a lot more in top conversion tables because of Senifed really increasing the floor of the deck. One thing of note as well is that Chris Rain was here and she hit 3rd place overall. Chris Rain did surprisingly well. A lot of people, I think, myself included, didn't expect Chris Rain to be that crazy. I thought we all anticipated her to be like a B-tier deck, but there's a pretty good reason why she is up there, and I'll go into that a little later. And for collab decks, I also said that I would go over those. Apparently I lied, but Fern is doing great as well. So that was what we had on the first weekend. Let's look at the second weekend as well. So this is WGP Korea. And in Korea, we saw a singles tournament, and this is top cut. As you can see here, we have a bit of the stragglers here. Even Alden made 9th place, which is incredible. I'll talk about Alden in a bit as well. But as you can see, Jiva is our first place winner. And the Jiva winning list here, as you can see, I hope it shows well on OBS. Let me double check that. Yep. Okay, Jiva does really well with a very stable build around searching out the crossover dresses. Not really going for the 5 material straw by arena, but still having enough oomph to go toe-to-toe with the best of the best. We see that Lianorn is nowhere to be found. And again, Youthberg takes up a lot of top cut. And Welstra does pretty well as well. And this is not an isolated Welstra either, because we see a ton of Welstra in the other lists up here. So let me go over those now. In Okinawa was about 2 weeks ago-ish. You can see Welstras here. You can see once more, this is with DZ-LBT02 in mind, right? Zorga's up here as well. Zorga is doing pretty good. Here are some of the Christmas decks. I didn't get to talk about these at length because I was very busy this past couple weeks. But you can see that these are doing pretty well. Lianorn does a lot better in a team format, in case you were wondering about Lianorn's performance here. Decks like Lianorn, which kind of operate on the axis of you have to kill your opponent quickly, your opponent can't heal out of ranges, or you're going to struggle a lot. It's a little fragile of a strategy, and thus, even in singles tournaments, winning Lianorn builds go for kind of a more consistent approach with the grade 3 order that calls grade 1s. I think that is kind of the way that Lianorn has positioned itself right now so that it doesn't lose as often to bad variants. But it is only a fraction of the metagame, not exactly the dominant force I thought it was going to be. And in addition to things I thought would be the dominant force and didn't turn out to be, you can see that Prison has 0 representation in Top Cut. Not one player in this 16 teams, 48 players, has Prison, which is kind of strange considering the fact that in singles tournaments it does pretty well. You can see again, in Korea, it has at least 1 placing. We can see here in China, in Guangzhou, this is with DZ-LBT02 out. Prison is here as well, rivaled by Minerva, and of course Minerva won the event. And yeah, you can see AUK is also doing okay. It has 1 top, and it has some as well here in Thailand, I believe. Does Thailand have an AUK? No, Thailand doesn't have an AUK. What? This one has an AUK, if I remember correctly. Yeah, you can see it there. Before I get on to Sapporo, let's talk about Thailand. Thailand was also an individual tournament, and as you can expect, because of that, no Lianorn. I was completely off the mark. Just want to reiterate that, I was wrong. And Minerva, despite only making up 2 of the top percentages, is the overall winner. Prison herself, not really in high top cuts. Top 8 is pretty great. This is still a very good result for Prison, but not exactly the dominant force I thought it was going to be. Chris Rain is not too far off either. Chris Rain is 12th place, that's pretty good. And big year for Lukier, by the way. Lukier, apparently the craziest deck of all time. Apparently this is the best encounter deck available. It's like 2 tops this year. That's pretty impressive for Lukier standards. And Welstra is also here as well at 32, I believe. 30. We can see that Welstra is doing pretty well with the new Blitzmobile card. And yeah, so it's Sapporo. This is another team tournament, hence the big amount of picks. And as you can see, not everything is underperforming. We can see Siana is doing pretty well from DZ-LBT02. Jiva's here as well. Alk is here. Basically every new deck from DZ-LBT02 has some kind of impact. Siana, I think, is more of like it's kind of funny and it's here. I don't think it's necessarily an indication that Siana is good, but I think it is strong enough that someone would consider bringing it and could see some decent results. You may notice that 2 of the more hyped decks have not shown up once here for DZ-LBT02, being Charmot and Raise Blaze, neither of which have a representation in any of the lists of any of the tournaments we've had so far. Bear in mind, I believe on the 29th, I think that weekend, we're going to see another tournament, so that could change a lot. But yeah, for now, this is the Lyrical top cut that you see. And also Zorga did very well in Sapporo here. There are like 5 Zorgas here. The first place team has a Zorga. Zorga has been doing quite well and is continuing to do very well as more and more people get more comfortable with the deck. Especially if you're newer to the deck but want to pick it up. It does take a bit of tinkering to get decent at it, which is a lot harder than picking up, let's say, a Heart Luru. And it kind of looks like there isn't a Heart Luru here either. Am I crazy? No, there is. There are Heart Lurus. Am I blind? Oh, he's here. Sorry. He's so small. It's way smaller than usual. Come on. So let's go over the first assumption that I had, which was that Lianorn and Prison were going to be the best decks in the format. I have some of my assumptions on my phone here, and I was not correct. Very clearly, I'm not right. I guess I didn't try it properly in my testing. That I thought Lianorn would be a lot better because I thought the numbers were really good. I thought it was consistent enough. I thought that maybe every time you would not see guard is a indicament of more of the deck just self-destructing in the way Lianorn self-destructs fairly often. Even beforehand, Lianorn could self-destruct on itself with Vivace builds, but it turns out that even stuff like more wasn't as good in the grade 3 order variants of Lianorn. Let me find a list to put up on screen so that you know what I'm talking about. This is kind of the scaffold of the build I'm talking about with this order here, which calls grade 1s off the top. Having a bunch of draw cards, going for a more stable line of play rather than going for all-out assaults. This line of Lianorn does a lot better than the more standard kind of maybe 2 Vivace, more and more 6 Rosarium Fairies, and then you go for a high ceiling, whereas this kind of prioritizes a pretty high floor instead. And this is kind of the best build we have of Lianorn stats-wise, although, that's not saying a lot because Lianorn's not performing very well. And I think that one of the biggest reasons for this is the high frequency of Prison. One thing to note, of course, is that this happened on the first weekend of the set. This was I think a day or 2 after the set actually released. And people want to test new stuff. They want to bring new stuff because it is a trading card game. People are going to have fun, which might be a foreign concept to many Cardfight Vanguard players, but some of them do enjoy the game, and as such, they're going to try new cards and new decks. So I think Prison has a fantastic matchup into Lianorn. I think Lianorn doesn't have the tools to deal with Daria Violet, doesn't have the resources to deal with all the imprisonment and getting stuff out, and I think from that end, when the Prison and Lianorn play rates are the same, then Prison is going to outperform Lianorn by a lot. So imagine that every Prison at some point queues into one Lianorn. That's basically one Lianorn that gets knocked out pretty much instantly. It's just kind of unavoidable. That's just how the matchup goes. That's okay. It happens. Based on this alone, you will be led to believe that Prison is the best deck in the format and there's not much room for experimentation. Another tier 0 format with a white woman at the top. See her, see Basagra. But, maybe not white woman, but in actuality, not really the case. As we, again, move on here in Korea, the next weekend, next weekend, I suppose, we see that Prison has only 1 placing, and it's not even top 4. It's top 8. That is not what a tier 0 format looks like, nor what a tier 0 power level deck looks like. Instead, we're greeted with a pretty diverse pie chart. Again, Bavsagra is doing great, by the way. If you haven't sold your Bavsagra course, keep that shit. It's still good. Instead, Jiva we're seeing success with, and Youthberg is being seen as kind of the titular aggressive strategy with Setnifred, I believe his name is, the new grade 2. Really strong deck. And what you might notice here is that, again, Lianorn doesn't make it, but now that Lianorn is out of the picture, Prison is struggling a lot. I think a lot of these decks here don't really struggle in the same way to Prison. There are things you can do about it relatively to the matchup. I think Jiva, Youthberg, and Welstra might be a bit too fast for Prison. Buff-Sagra does not auto-lose to Prison. You can kind of empty out your soul quick enough and then refill it to still get your skills. And Retire hurts Prison a lot. Draconis is kind of fast, and maybe Prison can't deal with that. But what this could suggest is that Prison is kind of a gatekeeper deck. Let me explain what I mean by that by highlighting yet again here. Again, no Prison in this list at all. So just to demonstrate that Prison is not the best deck in format, not the game-ending super threat that we all think it is, because some people thought it was, but it isn't. It really isn't that strong in theory. What Prison seems to be able to do is, oh sorry, I was wrong, there's a Charmot here. What Prison seems to be able to do is that it gatekeeps a lot of the weaker decks that cannot compete with it. In a singles tournament, that means if your deck is kind of a rogue-ish strategy or like on the cusp of getting to like tier 2, tier 1, if you can't beat Prison, your deck can't compete. That's not to say that Prison is very strong, but it's strong enough that it keeps those guys in check. And one of those guys is Lianorn, who just can't really make it if she has to queue into Prison very often. And once you don't have to queue into Prison very often, Lianorn does a little bit better. So that is kind of my theory about Prison, in that I think on the first weekend, it was a lot of beating up Lianorns, and going beyond that, people started to get more used to the Prison matchup, start playing decks that are more attuned to beating Prison, or at least playing decks that don't lose to Prison automatically. Minerva, like, destroys Prison, I'm pretty sure. I think this matchup is super favorite for Minerva as far as I'm aware. Based on, like, kind of reading, kind of a bit of chatting about it. Heartluru doesn't really struggle into it. Heartluru doesn't struggle into anything. Vergila's still very good. So that is kind of where Prison is right now as a new deck. I'm not going to say it's not the best deck in the format. I think it still has a pretty dominant result. Like here, here it has a good result in Thailand. Thailand is another individual tournament. I don't want to count it out yet, but I don't think it is BDIF in the way Buff-Sagra was, which is a good thing. I think it is good to have Prison be very strong, but not exactly be the strongest deck in the format. Otherwise, it can feel pretty oppressive. But if so many decks have the tools to deal with Prison, then it's not so bad. Then it is kind of a skill testing gameplay loop for both players involved, and that is fine. You want to have your gameplay tested, right? You want to prove that you are good at the game. So that is where I am with that. Another thing I thought was kind of that a lot of the decks that got triple rares would not be very good. That is to say, I thought Jiva wouldn't be able to make the cut. I thought Chris Rain wouldn't really make the cut. I thought Zorga was most likely to make the cut, and I thought Welstra probably wouldn't. But all four of those decks did really well and are doing very well. Zorga's kind of being considered as a decently high-level pick for a lot of players. There are 4 of them in Sapporo this weekend. Thanks to its new 4th/5th attacker, you are more likely to win those grind games. You are less subject to bad variants that Zorga kind of finds itself in. Welstra is finding incredible success, surprisingly, because I thought that having Helbentat would not fix the deck immediately, because, oh, you just search 2, but searching 2 in Welstra doesn't mean much, right? As it turns out, Welstra can still kind of perform as this really, like, fast win in 4 turns deck. And believe me, you kind of have to win in 4 turns, because otherwise you deck out. Because Welstra draws and filters so much. So it is pretty strong, all things considered. Chris Rain is kind of the big surprise, I think, for a lot of people. Because, it doesn't have triple drive, it doesn't, let me find it. It doesn't have triple drive, the skill is pretty similar to the old one. A lot of the deck is about the same. But Chris Rain is still doing really well. And why I think that is because I think it has a really good Prison matchup. And Prison is a very popular deck, and even beyond the Prison matchup, it's still kind of resilient, it's still very aggressive. It kind of struggles a bit in the grind game, so maybe not resilient, but it is really lethal and threatening, and on good variants, Chris Rain wins a lot. I know that sounds like really stupid to say, like if you're lucky, obviously you're gonna win, but there are a lot of decks that can't abuse having good variants. When Chris Rain tracks a trigger, your opponent is in a lot more hot water than maybe a lower tier deck. Like, if Bruce checks a trigger, I don't give a shit. It's Bruce, I'm going to kill it. But if Chris Rain checks a trigger, it's gonna kill you, right? So it makes good use of the variants in that regard. Basically, what I'm saying is that Chris Rain good. It's aggressive, it's fast, and it just needed a little extra tune-up, and it can compete with the metagame. But I guess that's not all we have to talk about, right? Because elephant in the room, address me, Minerva. this deck is insane. This deck is still incredibly good. Has been good for like 2 sets now, coming on the 3rd if you count DZ-LBT02. Minerva is such a strong deck, stable deck. Doesn't take too much to learn it, I believe. If you are looking for a top meta strategy that beats Prison, that is great going second, can still go first, Minerva is a fantastic pick. I would really recommend that if you have the money. Minerva's biggest gatekeep isn't the skill floor, it's the money. It's an expensive deck. Whether you find that healthy or not, you know, it's up to you to decide. But if we're looking for the next big deck to complain about, it's her. So that was all about set 11's metagame. But I do want to draw attention to the fact that a lot of these tournaments involve set 2 for Lyrical. So again, we are seeing Alk perform, we are seeing Charmot perform, Fennel perform, Sweet Linker had a ton of tops here. I'm not sure if it got too high. 5th place, I believe, is the highest one. Yeah, see, it's Team Welsh Trust Sweet Linker Fennel. This team of Welsh Trust Sweet Linker Fennel made 5th. That's pretty impressive. By statistics, we can kind of see that Fennel is doing really well. Fennel is probably the best of the Lyrical bunch right now. If you don't count Chris Rain, I think Chris Rain is better. But Fennel is doing very well in representation and in achieving a decent top. Most lists are running the old Fennel and then after the new ones in the main deck because there's not much difference between the two until you Persona Ride, unless you get really unlucky on Trick or Treats, but presumably you're not playing to get unlucky, right? So that's Fennel, which is doing great. Alk is doing okay too. I kind of see Alk as like Virgila Light, in that once you see the second Alk in your hand, the deck is insane. Like, it's pretty good. Like, the numbers are high, it's aggressive, it's fast. You just could not see the second Alk, and thus you are playing a pretty bad deck. But, well, if you do see the Alk, then you win the game a lot of the time. One of the things I talked about in the little short is that I wasn't particularly excited about Alk. But that's not to say I thought it was bad, I just thought it was kind of boring. But clearly, it's got results here. This is a list you could look at. This order, by the way, very good. I think this order is very strong. I can see why it holds the price tag it holds. Pick it up early, because I think the later this set goes on, the more you kind of start wanting a defensive piece in Lyrical, the harder this card is going to be to pick up. So pick it up quick. Other than that, yeah, Alk pretty strong. I would recommend Alk if you like. If you want an encounter deck, this is good. It's decently simple, I believe. You just have to, draw Alk. You don't have to really go for high ceiling. You just kind of have to go for these floor pieces like this one, which gives a little bit of more power, and this is the Mermaid Searcher. You can get a lot of mileage out of the new Alk. And Sweet Linker from this cup is one of these surprises, I guess, for a lot of people. I'm not surprised, but Sweet Linker is a deck that actually does something in that it can heal out, in that the Vanguard has crit pressure, it has multi-attack. It's a very strong deck. The heal is a pretty impactful part of the deck. Even if you don't use it every turn, having some extra amount of tempo / value of just heal 1 is really strong. And to put it in perspective, the only deck in all of the Lyrical Monasterio in that whole set, though I mean the meta isn't solidified around that set yet, the only Lyrical deck to not see a top is Raised Blaze, who a lot of people hyped up online, and I personally did not get it. I talked about this to some of my friends in real life, and we were very confused as to why there was a lot of buzz around the deck. It's not very, it didn't even read that good. The deck doesn't really do anything, except for like retire 1, maybe. The power is kind of like middling, it doesn't gain drive, it doesn't gain crit, so thus you don't have a way to make the mount an offensive pressure. So it's really strange that a lot of people really hyped it up online to me, and I think the results are kind of showing that in the past couple weeks since the set has come out, either nobody has figured out the build, or maybe the deck just isn't very good. A little disappointing, but hey, not every deck can be a winner. Let me just show the Sienna build on screen here, just because I like Sienna a lot. There we go. Bunch of multi-attackers. Basically, having a bunch of extra shield is a suggestion, not the rule, but you still want to go for a pretty aggressive strategy with a multi-attacker, plus this one who is also a multi-attacker. These are all on VG Paradox, so go look these up for yourself, but I just wanted to talk about that for a bit, about the Lyrical meta as well. Last thing I do want to talk about is, just because I'm mad, is I want to talk about how, in my original video, I say Dredrewd Magnus is pretty close. I'm wrong. Dredrewd doesn't show up at all. He didn't do anything. He showed up less than Lukier, for fuck's sake. It's incredible. I don't know what to do with Dredrewd. If you figured something out, please share with the class. But other than that, Truth makes me so sad. I spent so much money on this deck and it's so mid. So, you know, a little sad about that personally, but maybe I just didn't try it properly. And maybe someone else out there has the sauce. What else do I want to mention? Do I have any remaining thoughts? Most of what I've said, I've already said my piece on. Sorry I didn't ever cover the collab decks. A lot came up. And I guess last thing I'll look at is Night Roast here, because, you know, a lot of people in my comment section like talking about Night Roast, and this is the Night Roast list. Pretty freaky, a lot of one-offs, a lot of tech. But what you want to highlight here is the new order, which is doing God's work, apparently. Really brings the deck together. You can get Obadiah-like skills for free, opening up your resources to do other things in Night Roast, or giving yourself a little bit more power by calling one more card from the drop zone, giving you extra CB to do. Man, I don't know what you guys even do with Counterblast in Night Roast. Watermelon? Yeah, that's it. That's mostly it. I just wanted to ramble a bit and look at what I talked about beforehand and how I think it is either wrong or just different from what I expected. Yeah, so that's how the metagame has shaped around set 11 and Lyrical set 2. Let me know what you think in my comments below. Sorry that I haven't uploaded in a while, just a little busy with school stuff, but I think I can make a little bit more content nowadays. So thanks a lot, and that is all. Don't sleep on any of the new decks, but don't be too afraid to try out your old decks in a new format like this, because I think you'll find that new shiny toys sometimes are not going to, they're not always going to be the best decks in the room, and more often than not, you will be served better by using Minerva skill. Okay, so that's all I have to say. Bye-bye. Oh my god, I'm doing the editing now, and I realized I actually didn't talk about Alden, despite me saying I would talk about Alden. Let me quickly talk about Alden right here. So, Alden didn't see a lot of technically top, but you did see that it just got 9th place right in the video itself. But this is WGP Surabaya, which is Indonesia, and it got first. Overall first. I'm covering up the match history with my little body over there, but you can see that these are pretty real results. Obviously, you know, you might be immediately drawn to the fact that he lost to Youthberg and Eva, but what you may also see is that they played a ton of real decks. They beat the Youthberg in the rematch, only really losing to the Eva as the definitive loss, I guess, but beating everything else. Harluru, Chris Ring, Dolls, Lianorn, Virgila, Zorga, Prison. Highlighting this because I think I was really underselling how good Alden could be with this new grade 2. I guess there is a way to kind of play the grind and still be pretty aggressive. And 2, I wanted to highlight that rogue decks can do well. There is a certain power level that rogue decks should have to do well, and you can see this in their little thing here, that they got a lot of practice in the matchups for Prison, which is a thing that helped them in their final match. So don't be discouraged if you play like a rogue strategy here, even if not the top strategies appeal to you. Clearly there is hope for less explored strategies as well. That's all I had to say about that. The list here, really strong. It has a really early game aggression with the Minerva order. He fought Saragon, you know, the counterpile, but it scales pretty well into the late with decent mid-game stuff here in the grade 3, and Resident Evil's crazy. This card is insane. This card searches like basically anything. And this is the perfect guard for 5th attacks, which I believe, I believe it is that. A lot of decks in this format multi-attack a ton, so it is super strong. Yeah, that's all I had to say about that. Just, you know, keep your eye out for less explored strategies. It really could be something special. Don't give up on your pet decks just yet, I guess. That's all I have to say about that. I keep saying that. Yeah, alright. Really end of the video now. Bye-bye.